George Bruno with the 21 Report. We're at the 21 Convention, the final event of the decade, and I'm talking with Texas Dom. Welcome.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
You were on stage.
I was.
Let's talk about that.
That was yesterday, not today.
Yeah, what did you talk about?
I talked about dominance and submission. I talked about long-term relationships, marriages. I talked about, people's fantasies, dealing with the fantasies, dealing with shame, dealing with repressed desires, that type of thing.
Does everybody experience that?
I think everyone has desires.
Yeah.
They don't deal with them all the time.
Right.
Right.
What do we do if we have desires but don't act on them?
Well, eventually you get either they get bottled up inside, and you don't do anything about it. Eventually, you're not feeling congruent. Your actions and your thoughts are not lining up right. A lot of times that can lead to depression.
Yeah.
But in a perfect world, if you're with somebody else, you start talking about your desires with that person, and the two of you come to some sort of an agreement on what you can do to help each other out with those type of things.
Yeah.
So.
Is it easier to deal with, obviously, if both people agree on things, you move forward. What happens when you disagree on things?
Depends on what the big things are, right? Are they big things or are they little things? Are they sex things or are they finance things? You know, at the end of the day, in our world, one person has to make the final decision.
Yeah.
Has to be the final arbiter of the big decisions.
Sure.
And in that case, it's me. I'm the leader, she's the follower, and she's happiest when she follows, and I'm happiest when I lead.
Yeah.
Sexually, that might be a little bit more of an impasse because it has to be consensual.
Sure.
And you have to both be on the same page.
Right.
So.
Right. She's happiest when you lead.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that.
It took a while to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Did that happen overnight? Did you just make that decision, or was it?
Yeah. Well, no. I've been making the decision to lead for 30 years.
Yeah.
Right. She just made the decision to follow completely. I don't know, 10 years ago or less. We were pretty miserable. We were roommates at that point. You know, we were trying our best. We loved each other. The love was always sitting in the corner somewhere. It never really left. But she was fighting for control. I was fighting for, and she has to have control in her business. She has to be, she leads her business, and she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yes.
But what she figured out one day was she wasn't happy. She knew I wasn't happy. We both were thinking divorce at some point. We never really talked about it. Didn't want to use the D word, as we call it, right? But what ends up happening is that she started searching for her own happiness. Genius. She's watching TV and she sees one of these off-cable channels. There was a series devoted to Christian submissive women. It only made it about 4 or 5 episodes, what I'm told, because it didn't meet the mainstream criteria of the feminist agenda, and it got yanked. And then she started searching online, and she realized, she came to me that one day and said, I was thinking she was going to say it's time for the divorce, right? And she said, no. She said, I think I would be happiest if I was a submissive wife instead of trying to be in control all the time. Instead of fighting, head to head, always bickering type of thing about who's going to do what. And I had no idea what she was asking me, but I immediately agreed to it, thinking to myself, I can do whatever. I don't want this thing to end. So we ended up, actually, she was heading off on a trip and I was going somewhere, and we had about 10 days apart for me to research what she had asked me and for her to do some more thinking and all that. And we came back together, and it was good. I mean, we were driving to the airport. I about drove off the road when she mentioned this to me. And the plan was just to pull her right up to the gate, drop her off and check the bags outside.
Drop off the roommate.
And send her off, right?
Yeah.
And I slowed down. I knew I had time. I always leave early to the airport. I'm that guy, right? I slowed down, took my time getting there, parked the car, walked her inside. There's a coffee shop outside of the gate before security. And I asked her for a cup of coffee. And we had a date right then and there, and talked and talked.
And you had been married a number of years.
At that point, 20-something, right? And it was all headed down the tubes.
You don't hear much about married people having dates.
Yeah, they should. They should have as many as they can, because you don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
right? But yeah, we sat there at that coffee shop and talked until the very last possible moment to get her through security. And we ended with a kiss that was the most passionate kiss that we had probably had in 10 years.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, I think this might work.
Yeah.
Had no idea what I was agreeing to,
Yeah.
right? But it's worked out. So.
Wow. Wow. What the word roommate, we were just roommates. Wow.
Yeah, passed each other in the hallways, shared a bed, well, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
How do you go from roommate how do you go from lover to roommate back to lover? I mean, I know you described the process. What has to happen inside you for that to happen?
You have to communicate. You have to listen. You have to try to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
Yes.
Forgive, right? Because you know everybody's made mistakes,
Yes.
and you have to say, okay, it's time to start being honest with each other, and start to trust each other again. And you know, trust takes very little time to blow, and a lot of time to rebuild.
Yes.
And so we're on the path now to rebuild the trust, rebuild the relationship, and communicate and talk. So.
Wow. You don't hear a lot about older couples doing this, mature couples doing this. Usually most people just cash in their chips.
Who's old? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
Old.
I have no idea. I'm just hypothetically speaking.
No, I'd like to think I'm mature, but probably
Yeah.
not. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, it's so easy these days just to say, to heck with it. The kids are out of the house.
Yes.
You know, we're living here with the dog. Who gets the dog? We'll sell the house, or it's easy. It's become a society of, it's just easy. It takes path of least resistance.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes things are worth sticking out. You've got all these years invested. I mean, this woman saved my life twice, literally saved my life. And she's the reason I still have a leg. We're going to chop my leg off. And she
Wow.
talked him out of it, type of thing, right?
Wow.
Oh, you go through so much together, and you grow from these two kids that don't have any business being married or what they're doing, and they're making babies, and they're struggling through, and they're struggling financially, and you get through all this hell together. And then the kids are gone, and all of a sudden you're looking at each other, and it's like, what do we do here? And they have this thing, they call it the gray divorce, right? And that's where a lot of people are. They get to that point and they just split. And you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And it's tough because you look at people that are divorced and they're out looking for other people in our age bracket.
Yes.
And it's an interesting marketplace from what I can tell.
Yeah.
I've been married 30 years now, so.
Yeah.
But I did look around for a while there, and I have friends, and it's brutal out there, right?
I was talking with Ken Curry yesterday about this, and they experienced their empty nest. They married 35 years. They got their empty nest, and there was a juncture. I mean, you go from being parents. Well, you never stop being parents to your kids, so
Sure.
to speak. But you're having dinner, looking at each other, instead of dealing with the kids, and that can make or break it. And for them, fortunately, they made it. What is it about empty nest that makes people reassess their marriages?
I think it's you've spent all this time focusing on your children.
Yeah.
T-ball, Girl Scouts, soccer, everything that you do for these kids, and you get them through high school, and you're pushing them out the nest, and you don't really want them to leave, but you know they got to leave. And then you didn't spend enough time taking care of your marriage along the way. You focused everything on the kids. The wife quit being the lover and became the mom. Then she starts to look at the husband as being another kid in the house, and then there's no spark anymore. There's no flirting. There's no date night.
Yeah.
Right. And so once it's gone, now if all your focus was on object A is no longer in the picture. Where do you put your focus? Maybe you got a dog, right? So it gives you something to talk about. I just think that it's just vitally important that you take time to communicate about your relationship and figure out what's the next step. Where do we go next? and do it together. Formulate that plan together, you know, instead of going off in your separate ways.
Do you have dinner together every night?
Every night? No, I travel a lot for work, and so that's impossible. But when we're home together, we
travel as far as getting on a plane?
Getting on a plane, heading out, being gone for 3 or 4 days in a row, that type of thing. But I come back and then we spend time together. You know, we do our darndest to, you know, to stay on track. Dinner together, yeah, as much as possible.
What is an important thing in your relationship? Is it Sunday mornings, drinking coffee, reading the newspaper? Is it what is the one thing you look forward to and that you miss?
We have, when we changed our lifestyle and fixed our problems. We always have problems, right? There's always going to be ebbs and flows. There's always going to be give and take, and there's no perfect relationship. And when we got on track, back on track, we dedicated some time in the morning over coffee to communicate, right? To sit back and say, not the water pipe's busted, not, you know, car payments due, where we at, not what's going on at work, not the kids, not the grandkids, us, how are we doing? And we would talk about our relationship. And if you don't let problems fester and grow bigger than they really are, if you can intercept things that didn't quite go right maybe the day or two before and fix them, or at least discuss them and come up with an alternate plan for next time. If you can get that done early on, it doesn't fester. And so that's the time I cherish the most, morning coffee. So we sit there and communicate. And poor thing, because I wake up an hour or two before she does, and I've already had a lot of coffee. So I'm ready to go. Let's talk.
Well, there's times when I'm tweeting something pretty early in the morning,
Yeah.
and I know, and you're responding to it.
Oh yeah, I'm up.
And I know you are at a time zone that's different than mine.
Yeah.
You know, and you're up.
That's a curse, right? You
Yeah.
know, you can only sleep so many hours.
Yeah, right.
And I think the other thing, I go to bed earlier than I used to now, so it's you know, so. And that's the other thing that I think is really, really interesting when couples get older. They tend to not go to bed at the same time anymore, right? If you go to bed at the same time, your percentage of having something good happen in the bedroom probably going to go up if you're both getting in bed at the same time. If one of them gets in bed an hour and a half later, the other person comes in, right, tries to sneak in, wakes that person up. Now they're kind of grumpy, right? You woke me up, that kind of thing. So,
interesting.
Little trick.
I've done a lot of studying on relationship styles and relationship improvement, and I came up with a thing called relationship fasting. And it's kind of like the relationship version of intermittent fasting, where you have a finite period together and then a period apart. And that happens by default with a lot of couples where one person travels, is on the road a lot. For people who just do a 9 to 5, and they're just on each other's case all the time, they have to learn to kind of separate a little bit. Maybe she has a craft room, he's got a workshop or a study, and you kind of go to your corners, do your own thing, then come together. I have found, like one of my clients, a guy that I cut his hair, he became a flight attendant. He's our age. He became a flight attendant about 20 years ago. And he does transatlantic travel. So he's literally, flying to the UK, Europe, 4 days a week. Lives in New Jersey, and 4 days a week he's gone. I said, "How did that? What effect did that have on your marriage?" And I was expecting something completely different. He goes, "It saved it."
Yeah, I can see that.
I said,
"I can see that.
Tell me how that happens." And he says, "Well, the 3 days a week that we're together, we are truly together." He says, "My desire for her grows after about the third day of being away. I can't wait to be with her." He says, and then at the end of 3 days of being together, he says, "I know I got to go back to work and get back up in the air." And it made a big difference in their relationship. It sounds like that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah, and it's funny because early on in our marriage, the middle part of the marriage, when things were just, kids and everything, stress and everything hit, there'd be times where she'd look at me, she's like, "When are you traveling again?" right?
How interesting.
And I needed a break, she needed a break, and we needed to go separate ways a little bit, right? And now it's just the opposite now, right? It's like, okay, when are you gonna be home? When are you coming back?
Yeah.
So she'll have a plan, and we have little rituals and things that we do when we get back together again, and that type of thing, and it's meaningful, and so we are much more happy now together when we come back on that. And yeah, people talk about that a lot. Guys that travel a lot will talk about that. Hey, I retired, and oh my God, I'm around her every day.
Yeah.
No, what am I doing? Jesus.
It's like a different version of empty nest syndrome. Now we have to just look at each other every night for dinner.
Yeah, so they have to, like you said, they've got to have a shop. They got to build things. They got to go do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What if you worked a 9 to 5 and were home by 5:30 every night?
I have no idea what that would be like.
Yeah.
I literally don't have a clue how people do that.
Yeah.
I had to work in a cubicle one time. I'm in sales, and I happened to live in the same town where the company was located. And something had happened inside sales, and they needed someone to come in and manage this group for a while until they hired somebody else. And so I came in and stepped into that role.
Yeah.
It was a very short period of time because I couldn't wait to get out of it.
Yeah.
I got to be out moving.
Yeah.
And I just have no idea what it'd be like to do a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean,
Wow.
I'm not sure I could do it.
Yeah. Well, you've cultivated something nice, and I think it works for you. Some people, I think, when I asked my client, what did that being away for 4 days a week do for you? I was almost expecting him to say, he ended up having a girlfriend in Europe, and
wow.
like whatever. But it was the opposite.
I think you hit a word. We cultivated our life together. I like that word. We are both having to add to the soil. We're both having to make sure things get watered. I think that's the secret. One person can't do all the heavy lifting, right? If in the relationship, you both have to kind of have a goal and want to be together. And you see one person trying to save, like a bad marriage or whatever, and one person is just going way out of their way, and the other one's already checked out, right? And it's just a matter of time almost, unless the one that checked out finally realizes, they come to their senses and decide to jump back in. But when both are cultivating and both are nourishing, watering, making sure the sun's coming up, that type of thing, it can work, it can grow.
Wow.
So I love it. So.
Well, this went in a completely different direction,
Yeah,
as it
no
usually
doubt.
does.
No doubt.
And wow, this is going to help a lot of people. This is going to help a lot of people watching this video.
I talked about our lifestyle, and it's an alternative universe to some people. The whole dominant, submissive thing, and that's fine, right? It's just, and it's not the crazy, kinky sex that people all think it is. It's this incredible relationship that just continues to grow through good times and bad times. You still have bad times. You still have challenges. You still have health issues. But and the sex part is awesome. It's amazing. But it's the icing on the cake. And people get into this thinking, oh man, sex is going to be great. Yeah, it is. But it's not the long-term benefit.
Yeah.
Right? And so our thing is just to be able to say, this is an alternate way to live. This is the way your grandparents lived. He was in charge. He was head of household.
Yeah.
Grandma made sure the meals were made, and Grandpa made the decisions. Now to the younger generation, maybe your great grandpa, right? Or maybe your parents still live that type of lifestyle. But my message to anyone out there is to say, look, there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship. It's very satisfying if you pick the right person. Vet carefully. We always talk about that. Make sure you're not, marrying a terrible person. But it's just one of those things that you can make it if you want to, if both people are willing to put in the work. And we just found a way of doing it. What works for us may not work for anybody else.
Right.
But it does work. This is the thing. I quoted there was a study from the Kinsey Institute on Americans and what their sexual fantasies were and all this stuff. And I quoted some stuff yesterday out of this book. It's a great book. And the thing about it is that people are all thinking about how to keep things spiced up in their lives, how to keep things spiced up in their bedrooms, how to not let that spark die. And if both people are actively pursuing keeping the spark tendered right? Not letting the flame completely die out. Yeah, sometimes it's roaring, and sometimes it's tiny, but you both have to keep adding fuel and adding air.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
That's it. So that was what speech was all about.
Engines need fuel and spark.
You got to have it.
That's it.
Yeah, yep.
And they can't operate without.
And speaking of sparks, we talk about the masculine and feminine energies coming together is what makes that spark.
Yeah.
You know, that's the spark of attraction that happens, right? It's
Yes.
the two ends of a magnet, opposite ends that come together. And when men are allowed to be men, and women are allowed to be feminine women, and not be forced into some role that corporate America has told them they have to be into, or the feminist agenda has told them they have to be into. And you got all these women that are so unhappy, but women that have decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to buck the system. I'm going to start wearing my dresses again. I'm going to start being a feminine woman again. They exude this beauty that is a feminine energy. And for the right man with his masculine energy, that's magic when they get together. You know, there's desire. And so when everybody's trying to be equal, and everybody's trying to do everybody's, oh yeah, we're a team and we do everything equally, and the spark dies. And if your spark has died, figure out what's going wrong. Look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Right? And then just try to figure out how to be more masculine, have her be more feminine. Right? It just seems like common sense, but they got it 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody figured it out way back in the day. So where do we go wrong?
All things become new again.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, now it's viewed as some sort of a crazy alternative lifestyle.
Yeah.
And back then it was just how people lived.
It's how people lived.
Right.
Wow. Going from lover to parent to roommate and back to lover. A conversation with Texas Dom. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Enjoyed being here.
What was your experience so far with the 21 convention?
Oh, outstanding, outstanding.
Professional all across the board. Really good energy with a lot of people, and I just like it because it's a very positive direction.
This, George, this has been a first-class event.
It's fantastic. You guys run a really tight ship. I've been to a lot of conventions over the course of my business career, and I can tell when things are well run and when things aren't, and this is a very well run operation. I was very impressed.
It's pretty incredible to see where Anthony's brought it, especially from last year, which was my first year here, and to see the upgrades he's made, it's been incredible.
I've got my notebook, and with every speaker, I've written down about 2 or 3 lines under each of the speakers of just the key prime stuff. That's good. That's good.
It's very surreal, man. I'm really enjoying it. I'm happy to live in such an era where such a thing like this is possible.
I have never seen a group of guys like this, a group of 200 men who are focused, squared away, they're working on their values. Just never met a bigger group of wonderful guys.
It's kind of neat because I've been to a fair amount of conventions in my day, but you never see one where the guys like here you can just see Ed Lattimore talking to Tanner about boxing.
Yeah.
You just sit down and then you tell your boxing experiences. Everybody's kind of pinging off each other. It's nice.
It has been fantastic. And it's been 4 days of guys all on the same page, working in the same direction.
Fascinating meeting some of the people, hearing their stories. You got people traveling from other parts of the world to come here just to see some of the speakers. That's amazing.
The thing that's impressed me is everybody here is very serious.
Yeah.
They're taking it, close to their heart.
What a great convention.
Thanks, George.